Tvameva Sharanam Mamadina Bandhu Bhakti-Varashajanam Bhavaveryakani Vasman Surinam Ramanaya Padmam Aduriro Vimine Nacharanitinchi Asmameva Sharanam Mamadina Bandhu Nikaritam Krishna Radha Tori Ramakrishna Nityanvitam Dasharanam Bhagavantinasha Tasmameva Sharanam Mamadina Bandhu Nikarisham Gunakari Santam Shimam Suvimalam Ramanaya Padmam Tasmameva Sharanam Jagate Ratanya Asmameva Sharanam Mamadina Bandhu Om Sakataya Satarmasya Sarvada Sarupine Bhagataya Varishta Krishna Yate Namah Om Namah Sri Bhagavate Ramakrishna Namo Namah Om Namah Sri Bhagavate Ramakrishna Namah Shri Bhagavate Ramakrishna Namo Namah
meditate for about 10 minutes and we'll sing some songs. As we're approaching Krishna Puja, let's do some Krishna songs. Start with 51. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare. Well, I don't remember this as well as I thought I did. Krishna, Hare, Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Let's try another one.
There's water on the floor there for you, Swami.
I think that's going to help my memory.
Just your throat.
All right, let's see. What else? Or something someone else knows well. We can do. That's 114. Krishna Ram Govinda Ram Krishna Govinda Krishna Govinda Krishna Ram Krishna Govinda Govinda, Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Govinda, Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Govinda, Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Govinda, Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Govinda, Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Govinda, Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Govinda, Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Govinda, Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Krishna Govinda, Krishna Rama Govinda, Rama Krishna Govinda.
Right. Let's see. I don't know if I should practice these. Let's see. Krishna Come Dance by Border Pond is very pretty. I guess I put it down a step.
What page?
109.
Krishna, my Krishna, ungratified heart, come back again. Govinda, Govinda, my heart, the gopis of Vrindavan. Oh Krishna, my Krishna, my come back again to stay. Oh Krishna, my Krishna,
that's on your feet. Let's see if I can get through that one.
And the page.
130.
130.
So here, the accompaniment. Don't. Okay. I may not be able to do this. It's missing an accompaniment, so that's not gonna work. All right, let's see. What else can we do?
We're doing a different one, I guess. They're confused. I said we're not going to do this one.
Yeah, there's no accompaniment to the first half, so I won't be able to do that. All right, let's see here. The 146, let's look at that one.
One 146.
146.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya.
I thought it should be.
This one.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna Radhe Radhe Govinda Hare Rama Hare Krishna Radhe Govinda Hare Rama Hare Krishna Radhe Govinda Hare Rama Hare Krishna Radhe Govinda Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Radhe Govinda. Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Radhe Govinda. Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, 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 Hare Rama Hare Krishna Radhe Govinda, 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 Radhe Govinda, Radhe Govinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, 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 Hare Rama Hare Krishna Radhe Govinda, 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 Radhe Shri Krishna
Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Govinda, 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 Hare Govinda, Hare Govinda, Hare Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Govinda, 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 Hare Govinda, Hare Govinda.
Short one, we can find What is it? Do you have a song?
Oh, I'll sing one.
Oh, please.
You want to sit up there?
Here. We have a mic here.
No, there's no mic, but at least we can, I can focus it better.
See you. Yeah.
And people can hear you better. I can put this closer. And get this closer.
मैं नहीं माखन खायो भोर भई गई यन के पाछे भोर भई गई यन के पाछे मधुबन मोहि पठायो चार प्रहर बन से बट बट क्यों साँझ परे घर आयो मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो मैया मोरी कसम तोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो मैं बालक भई यन को छोटो मैं बालक भई यन सो छोटो छीका के विधि पायो मैं बाल बाल सब बैर पड़े ग्वाल बाल सब बैर पड़े बरबस मुख लपटायो मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो मैया मोरी कसम तुरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो ये ले अपनी लकुट कमरी ये ले अपनी लकुट कमरी बहुत ही नाच नचायो सूरदास तब वे हंसी यशोदा ले उर कंठ लगायो मैया मोरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो मैया मोरी कसम तेरी मैं नहीं माखन खायो. I apologize.
You want some water? Would you like some water, Gilija? Let me get you some.
You say, did you summarize the translation?
Oh yes, it's Lord Krishna who is blamed that he has stolen the makhan, and he said, "No, I did not do that." And then he says, "Every morning I go with the cows, so how can I do that? Because I come home in the evening, so it's not possible that I ate the butter." Then he says, "I'm so small, how can I reach to the, what is the chica? How can I reach to, yeah, how can I reach that far? Because the butter is in the basket on there." So he said, "I'm such a small child, how can I reach there?" But all these friends of mine, they just blame me and they just put the butter on my mouth. So you think that I ate, but it's not really possible that I could have taken it. And then he gets angry and he said, "Okay, you take all these things. You have just danced me so many times for no reason." So then the poet Surdas says that then the mother Yashoda, she laughs and then she hugs him with all the affection.
That's sweet.
Sorry, my throat.
No, I understand. Thank you for singing.
माने चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, गिरिधारी माने चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, गिरिधारी चाकर रहूं सो बाग लगासू, नित नित दर्शन पासू, चाकर रहूं सो बाग लगासू, नित नित दर्शन पासू, वृंदावन की कुंज गलिन में, वृंदावन की कुंज गलिन में, गोविंद लीला गासू, माने चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, गिरिधारी ऊंचे ऊंचे महल बनाऊं, बिच बिच राखूं बारी। ऊंचे ऊंचे महल बनाऊं, बिच बिच राखूं बारी। सांवरिया के दर्शन पाऊं, सांवरिया के दर्शन पाऊं, पहन कुसुम्बी सारी। मन चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो। गिरिधारी जोगी आया, जोग करन को तप करने सन्यासी। जोगी आया, जोग करन को तप करने सन्यासी। हरि भजन को साधु आया, हरि भजन को साधु आया। वृंदावन के वासी, माने चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो। गिरिधारी मोर मुकुट पे तांबर सोहे, गल वैजंती माला। वृंदावन में धेनु चराए, वृंदावन में धेनु चराए। मोहन मुरली वाला, माने चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो। गिरिधारी मीरा के प्रभु गर गंभीरा, हृदय धरो जी धीरा। आधी रात प्रभु दर्शन दीजो, आधी रात प्रभु दर्शन दीजो। प्रेम नदी के तीरा, मन चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो, चाकर राखो। गिरिधारी। This is a bhajan by Saint Meera, and she really, when she was 4 years old, she was talking to her mom, and she said, "Who do I will be married?" And her mom just jokes with her, and she said, "Oh, you'll be married to Krishna." So then, ever since she was 4 years old, she took Krishna as her husband. So then she goes to the Krishna temple and sings. And even in our college and high school, we read all the poets, all the bhajans by Meera, Surdas, Tulsidas, and Kabir. So Meera was one of the saints. So she saying to Lord Krishna that make me your servant. So then I can make a garden, and then every day I see you in the garden, because in the Vrindavan you are there. So I will sing your praise. Then she said that I will make palatial homes, but I will keep the window. So then I can see you from the window. I have your darshan. Then he said the saints come here to do the worship, but then the sannyasi comes to do the meditation. But then the people like us just do the bhajan, and we go in the Vrindavan and see you. We do darshan of yours. So then she said that you, Krishna, you have a more mukut, and then you wear yellow outfits, and then in your neck you wear Vajanti Mala, and then in Vrindavan you go with the cowards and uh, take care of the cows, and you play the flute for all your friends. So then the Meera said that please come in the middle of the night and give me darshan. That's all I expect.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much, Girish. You're so
That's
kind.
right.
That's
I'm so
really
sorry,
sweet.
my throat
No,
just.
here, let me go.
No, I'll have.
Make sure.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
It's right into the topic, you know.
That's so nice. Oh, I think this is yours for your papers.
Yeah.
This-
Where do I need to be? There we go.
Yeah. Let me help you with this. I get it all turned. This is a little harder. Here's that. How's that better? Let's see. Yes. Get you out of there if you want. Here.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Puratu Sahavir Karai Tejasvinavaditamasu Mahavidvishavai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Oh, peace, peace, peace. And good evening. Our topic is music, emotions, and spiritual practice. So we just heard a lovely song about how Vera sang to Krishna and did her devotions that way. As opposed to doing pujas, and singing songs is a very common way of doing spiritual practice. There's something very powerful about music. It bypasses part of our kind of intellectual mind and speaks directly to the heart. And when we bring that power into our spiritual practices, something extraordinary can happen. Music is just not entertainment, it's a pathway to the sacred. And this is nothing new, this is very ancient, and it's cross-cultural. It goes all the way through many, many cultures. Of course, in the Hindu tradition, we have very ancient Vedic chants as well as bhajans and kirtans. But Vedic chants have been used for thousands of years to invoke specific deities and create an atmosphere with the rhythmic repetition of the chants, which helps to align our minds with spiritual energies and promote inner peace. The ancient Greeks used music. They considered it a divine gift to the gods. Pythagoras promoted the idea that the whole universe was built on the music of the spheres, and that the celestial bodies produced harmonic sounds that influenced our soul, and they used music in their rituals to achieve harmony between body, mind, and spirit. Then, of course, Christianity started with Gregorian chants, and that's still an integral part of worship in some of the churches. Not all of them use it anymore, but many of them do. And of course, these chants are simple, flowing melodies that are designed to elevate the soul and focus the mind on spiritual matters and create a meditative state. So all of these traditions use this music to create a particular kind of mood. Then later on in the Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther promoted the idea of using hymns and using the texts that they of spiritual ideas and putting them to music that can be easily sung by the congregation so that they would remember them. And so just like you remember all the songs you learned in school about Krishna and so forth, the Protestants could remember all the teachings that they were supposed to know by remembering the hymns. When you, just as Vedic chants made it easier to remember the Vedas, the hymns made it easier to remember the spiritual lessons of the lyrics. Then, of course, Islam doesn't use a lot of music, but it still has calls to prayer, which are very musical. And then, of course, in the Sufi tradition, you have the idea of using the both dance and song in order to create a ritual. They call it the Sema, and it's accompanied by spiritual music, and it helps participants to reach a divine ecstatic state and connect with God. So music in spiritual traditions is used as a tool to reach these deeper states of consciousness, to enhance meditation and to connect with the divine. Of course, we also can use that with our mantras. You don't have to, but many people will use just maybe a 2 or 3 note tune in their mantras to increase their concentration. We repeated Om just to a single tone, but it's a single tone, and the Om vibration then vibrates with our whole being. And just the part of the Om, interestingly enough, humming is now shown to increase certain chemicals, the nitric acid especially, which enhances certain body functions. And so all of these things are interconnected. Bhajans and kirtans are a form of devotional music, and these not only help the individual to sing praises to the Lord in whatever form. We have bhajans for all the different deities, but also it creates a communal atmosphere of joy and devotion, and it allows the congregation to participate and form a sense of unity and spiritual upliftment. What we found is that there's, when we sing, and listen to music, there's a release of all sorts of neurochemicals. There are endorphins, which are like a pain, are natural painkillers, oxytocins, which are our natural feelings of bondingness and love, and dopamine, which also is a pleasure hormone. So music is able to stimulate all of these different kinds of brain chemicals. Certain tones and rhythms align with certain body functions like our heart rate and our breathing and so forth. And so singing and chanting can synchronize with our heart rates and our breathing patterns. And this not only gives us an individual uplift, but also, again, creates a shared spiritual experience and helps a whole group of people align their natural rhythms with each other. So music is somewhat of a universal language, kind of an interesting universal language, because some aspects of music are very universal, whereas others are very specific to a particular culture and a particular time. You can certainly look at, certainly in Western music, the music has changed dramatically from Gregorian chants up through modern music. And even in modern music, you have all sorts of genres. You have more classical music, you've got movie music, you've got pop music, and in the program that I have for artificial intelligence singing, they list about 30 different categories, most of which I've never even heard of different kinds of genres of music today. So there are all sorts of genres of music, but it's universal in that it seems to be able to express emotions and induce emotions somewhat universally. There was an experiment where they took people from 60 different countries and then they played short excerpts, just a few seconds, maybe 15, 20 seconds of different music from different cultures all over the world, and asked them, does it express love? Does it express devotion? Is it a lullaby? Is it dance music? Is it something for a like a marriage ritual or a sacred ritual or a healing ritual? And they did very well guessing from no previous knowledge. They could guess what kind of music it was designed for, whether it was designed for a healing ceremony or for some sort of military ceremony or something. So music seems to have that universal quality to it, even though our cultural differences are quite pronounced. So we all know that music can create different kinds of atmosphere. There's joyous music, there's triumphant music, there's nostalgic music, there's soft and meditative music. There's all sorts of kinds of music emotions. And music can be something which mirrors our emotions or that can induce emotions. So we can express emotions with music, and music can also induce certain kinds of emotion. And of course, again, this is certainly evident when you listen to movies. And a lot of times we do it unconsciously. The music is just in the background, but the music is there in order to enhance the storyline. The good composers do a good job, and that's why we have awards for them, because they've done the best job in promoting the theme of the story. And you can tell when it's a low budget film and they didn't bother to hire a composer. They just took musical clips from something, and half the time they don't fit. It's just really obvious that they didn't spend any time trying to really fit the mood of the movie to the music. And if you walk into a room where somebody's watching something and you're not even looking at the movie, but you're hearing the music, you can tell, oh, it's a suspenseful moment, or it's a tragic moment, or it's they're fighting or something. You can pretty much tell from the quality of the music what's going on. That's the power of music to express emotions. And of course, in our spiritual practice, emotions can express a wide range of emotions, because spirituality is not about avoiding our spiritual difficulties, but in integrating them and eventually transcending them. So, for example, in the Hebrew Bible, it contains songs of praise, songs of lamentation, songs of anger, and songs of hope. So it shows the whole range of emotions. So, all righty, here we go. I'm not sure it's going to help. So it's important to recognize that music is not just an accessory or some sort of extra just to make religious ceremonies more appealing, but it's a medium for imparting spiritual emotions. Also, there aren't any particular genres that are more spiritual than others. It just depends on the individual, really, and the certain selections from the genre. So any genre can have emotional moods that tie into all sorts of different emotions. And so some of the selections from any particular genre might be spiritual. And you don't have to be a musician to benefit from this, because just listening to music will also invoke a spiritual presence. So it's often said that music transcends language. We do a lot of communicating with language, and we communicate our emotions with language. But somehow music is able to even transcend language. Unlike spoken language, which depends on vocabulary and grammar and so forth, music uses rhythm and melody and harmony. And it's interesting that these three aspects of music have different emphases in different cultures. In many African tribes, for example, and even in some of the more Polynesian areas, rhythm is probably the predominant element in the music, drumming and so forth. Then in Indian music, especially with the ragas, it's the melodic line that's the most important element, and it's highly developed. And so that aspect of the music is probably the most developed. In Western classical music, it tends to be the harmony that's been the most developed. But all three of these aspects are present in music. And it's been shown in research that these musical elements, like tempo, pitch, and tonality, are perceived similarly across diverse cultures. So, fast tempos tend to be exciting and joyful. Softer melodies tend to be calm and peaceful, or maybe even sad or nostalgic and so forth. And so these kinds of things are quite universal. So music taps into our universal human emotions, things like love, celebration, grief, hope. So these are all recognized and interpreted similarly all around the world. So even if you hear a song that's being sung in a different language, we can get a general idea of the kind of emotion that's being expressed by the song. And and music has this ability to activate certain brain chemicals, and it's kind of seems rather mysterious as to why music should be able to do that. Why should music be able to increase oxytocin or dopamine or endorphins? Also, another interesting aspect of music is that it seems to help us to entrain motor activities to motion. If we hear a rousing number, we often want to clap our hands or tap our feet or sway to the music. So our body tends to want to move with the music. Now, if you look at Western classical church music, you find that in Gregorian chants, you're not tempted to do that, because it's supposed to invoke a very calm, peaceful mood that centers the mind on a particular spiritual message. And so it's not trying to make you get up and dance. But if you get later on into some of the music that the Baroque composers and Romantic composers, when they would write spiritual music, it was much more energetic, and it was more of an idea that we need to incorporate our spiritual life into our regular life. And so dancing and singing and moving is all still a part of spiritual life. And of course, there's still times to be quiet and meditative as well. Now, the peculiar thing is, why do we have these musical abilities? And why does music have such a great impact on our emotional life and all aspects of our life? Are we the only musical species? And are our musical abilities uniquely human? Well, Darwin wondered about this. He thought that music was rather mysterious. It didn't seem to have any evolutionary survival value. You know, do you survive better if you can sing or play a flute or drum on a tree branch? But he said there must be, because this was his thing, of course, is that if something has survived in a species, it must have some survival value. So he assumed that it did. Other people said, no, this is just a cultural invention, and we've just borrowed parts of our brain mechanism that have been used for other survival mechanisms, and that just happen to be useful to create music and to listen to music and to enjoy music. It probably is a combination of both. And that's one of the newer theories, is that it's sort of a co-evolution idea, something like our invention of fire, which happened several 100,000 years ago. Once you've invented fire, then you can learn how to cook your food. And if you learn how to cook your food, you can digest certain kinds of foods much more easily than you could before. And so this then changes your digestive system. And then when you start herding cows and drinking milk longer than a child would normally drink it, pretty soon the lactase enzyme doesn't disappear, and you've got a whole genetic change. So these kinds of things do happen. And so one theory is that, yes, there's some musicality built into our brains. And then as we use that musicality, it did help society to develop in certain ways. And so we developed even more musical abilities. It sort of fed on itself. So we're going to look at some of these ideas, because music is really old. They found a 40,000-year-old bone flute. And so somebody 40,000 years ago had built a very sophisticated flute. They analyzed it and they said, this person didn't just do this randomly. This had to be built on a whole culture of knowing how to build musical instruments, because it's done very well. And so they figured that our playing of music on things like flutes must go back even much further than that. So this is older than the paintings in the caves of France and so forth. It's obviously a lot older than the pyramids, 35,000 years older than the pyramids. So it's a lot earlier than agriculture. So human race has been using music in its life for a long, long time. And so the question is, why did it develop, and why has it survived, and why does it affect us so much? Well, and the other interesting thing is that there are these aspects of music that are so very universal, and then there's such an enormous variety among cultures and among times. So, which makes it more difficult to study, and we'll see a couple of examples of that too. So for some of the evolutionary theories, well, if you want to figure out why music might have an evolutionary advantage or a survival advantage, we can look at other animals and to see how they use sounds and something remotely like our music. And what it turns out is a lot of animals use mating calls. And so they're trying to attract a mate. And so the birds and other kinds of primates even eat frogs, insects, all sorts of organisms use various kinds of mating calls. Also, there's many examples of animals that use different kinds of sounds to as warnings for their species. There's a predator on the loose, so start to run or climb a tree or whatever it is, or hide in your hole. And so the different kinds of animals would use various kinds of calls or whistles or songs in order to warn their neighbors. They might just use them to locate somebody else. So if you want somebody to locate you, or you want to locate somebody, then you might do a call of some sort, and they might respond in some way so that you could know where they are. Or you might want to announce that let's gather for the hunt, or something of that nature, if you're part of a pack animal type situation. So all of these things are used by animals. And so these might have been something that helped human beings as well. If we look at some of our primate ancestors, we do find that, for example, chimps, which are our closest relatives, do drum on tree trunks and things in order to send messages to part of their chimp tribe. And so this is one way that musical abilities could have given us a survival benefit. Also, if we compare ourselves to other primates, we find that our abilities have evolved to be much greater than theirs. They have some musical abilities, but they don't have them anywhere near what human beings have. And one of the reasons might be that we developed this bipedalism, where we tend to walk on just two limbs rather than a combination of four limbs. And so when you do that, and you're now standing upright, it limits the birth canal, and so we tend to get born very early, and so mothers have to stay in contact with their young for a long time, because we're pretty helpless little infants as opposed to many animals. You look at deers and so forth or a horse being born, and it's just a matter of a few minutes, and they're up walking around. Well, that doesn't happen with babies. It takes a lot longer. So it's very possible that vocal interactions between the mother and the child had to be developed so that the mother could keep in contact with the child when they wasn't in direct contact. That was another problem, is that a lot of infants and other animals can cling to the mother's fur, and we don't have enough fur to cling to. Hair maybe, but that might be a little tough on the mom to just hang on to her hair, the head. So they need some other way to communicate and keep in touch with the baby and know where the baby is, and the baby knows where the mom is and feels comforted. So this is another idea. And the third one, which actually is now, I think, probably the most popular of the three, is that it's used to help communication among a group and to create group solidarity. And we see this all over the place. I mean, this is something that has survived into the current day. When you go to college, one of the first things they do is teach you the school song. And in high school, they teach you the school song, and you go to a game and you sing the school song, and you sing the fight song, and all of this stuff. So we're still using songs to create group solidarity. And this also helps to create, as we said, when kirtans, you get a group feeling, and Christians do it with their hymns. The Sufis do it with their songs and dances and their chants and so forth. So this idea of creating group solidarity through music is still very widespread. And this would give you an advantage if your tribe has more solidarity and fewer arguments, then you're going to be a more successful tribe than the one that doesn't. So the ones that developed music and songs and the ability to sing together, this would be an advantage. Another interesting difference that we have from virtually all other animals is our ability to recognize the similarity in pitch relationships, no matter what octave they're sung in. For example, they trained birds to peck when they heard an ascending group of notes, like da 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 da, and they did it for a couple of different intervals, but not very far away. They're all in the same octave. And they didn't peck if they heard da 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 da, but they did peck if they heard da 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 or da 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 da. But if it was da 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 da, they didn't peck. It was out of their range. Now they think that that's probably developed our ability to hear similarities in different ranges is probably because men tend to be an octave lower than the women. And this is unusual as well. You don't find this among other animals. You don't find a sex difference in their range of pitch. But in humans, you do. And so humans had to learn how to see the similarity in a melody or a series of pitches, no matter what octave it was sung in. And so we can all sing a song here, and we're singing it in our own octave, but we're singing what we think of as the same pitch, the octave equivalent. So these are things that are uniquely human. And if we compare primates, now where do I have that chart somewhere? Somewhere I've got a chart of, let's see, maybe it's still in there. I had trouble with the printer, and so I wasn't able to organize things quite the way I would have liked. I had to reboot the computer every time I printed a different document. Just don't understand why, but if I didn't, it would say, oh, no, you can't print. Okay, here we go. All right, so in the human brain compared to other primate brains is that we have a strong auditory motor connection, whereas primates have a relatively weak one. There are some animals that you can train to tap to a beat, but they tend to not anticipate the beat the way we can. They tend to do it just afterwards. And so they have a rather weak auditory motor connection. Whereas we can learn to dance and we can learn to drum and we can anticipate the beat. We know what the beat is doing, and so we can just go along with it without having to wait for something to happen and then respond to it. And we have specialized cortical areas for the tuning of pitch, whereas many animals don't hear much difference between different pitches and just noise. It's handled somewhat similarly. So these are things that differ between us and other primates. We have greater specialization. Our brains have a lot more areas of the brain that are responding to music. The other interesting thing is that our brains don't just have an auditory area. When we hear music or sounds, all sorts of areas in the brain light up. And they've compared this to our language areas. And there's large overlaps between the areas of the brain that process language and the areas of the brain that process music. And so now we have a debate. Did the music come first or did the language come first? most people think the music came first because even animals, some animals do sing. And so they don't have any language. Also, our musical abilities seem to be innate, whereas language obviously is not. There aren't too many babies that spontaneously start to read and talk. Although I did know of one person. We had a gentleman at Campbell Hall who was one of these people who was in sixth grade when he was 6 years old or something, in 12th grade when he was 12 years old. And the story goes that he didn't say anything until he was 2 or 3 years old, and then he just started to read. So obviously there was some past life stuff coming out of him. Yeah, he was tapping into some past life abilities and not having to learn them over again. So very interesting case, but that's not the norm. So that's another thing that seems to be unique about music, is that there's a lot of it that's very innate. We have evidence that babies or fetuses respond to music, and there's some benefit to playing soft and music during pregnancy, so that the fetus starts to learn that. It helps them actually to learn to speak faster, because they start to learn rhythms and tone, because we use a lot of tone when we speak. As you can see, I'm not just talking in a monotone like this, like a computer. My voice is going up and down and up and down. So there's a lot of similarities between language and music. And of course, composers use this idea as well. So if they want to express something musically, they'll listen to how somebody would express that emotion if they were talking. And so they can use whether the phrase should go up and whether the phrase should go down, perhaps the rhythm of the phrase and so forth. Depends on if there are lyrics, and you can use the lyrics. If there are no lyrics, and it's just the mood. And so these things are translated into music. Now, there's another interesting experiment that they did with monkeys. They wanted to see if monkeys like music. Now, monkeys aren't quite as closely related to us as chimps and other great apes, but they're still somewhat related. And they found that they preferred silence. No matter what kind of music you played, college grads would always choose the music. They would put them in a room, and if they were on this side of the room, the music would play, and if you're at that side of the room, the music wouldn't play. And the experiment was they just put them in this room and said, we'll be back in 10 minutes or whatever. So, do whatever you like. And so they wanted to know if they would spend more time in the half that played the music or the half that didn't play the music. They didn't tell them that was going to happen. But obviously, if you move around in the room, eventually you're going to discover that if you're over this half of the room, the music's going to play. And if you're in that half of the room, it's dead silence. Well, most people don't like dead silence unless you're a good meditator and you like to just sit and be quiet. But a lot of people, you can see how many people have earbuds in their ears now, walking around listening to music all the time. So we're kind of addicted to listening to music. But the monkeys didn't. They didn't like the music. They prefer the silence. But one smart person thought, well, maybe they just don't like Western music. And so they took examples from African music, Indian music, and Japanese music. They didn't like the Japanese music, but they liked the African music and the Indian music. I don't think there was much difference in how they liked it either. So I think they liked both of those. Now, they have not done enough experiments to know why they like those kinds of musics and why they didn't like the Japanese music or the Western music. But monkeys, it kind of makes sense. I mean, if they were living in the jungles and the people also living in the jungles created certain kinds of music, maybe there's something about the environment that created that kind of music. So our interest in music is probably connected somewhat to our environment. And of course, it's also connected to your background. It seems that people tend to get, their musical tastes tend to get fairly cemented by puberty. So, depending if you're a male or female, maybe somewhere around 11, 12, 13, 14 years of age, you're pretty much kind of got your musical tastes in line. And you can add to that by the time you're about 30. Most people are not experimenting too much, listening to different kinds of music and seeing what they like. But up to about 30, you can still add different kinds of music to your vocabulary. I always admire people that seem to be able to enjoy all sorts of types of music. I don't seem to be able to do that as well. Certain types of music fit better than others for me. So, and of course, this would also be a factor when you're trying to have group solidarity. If you're trying to develop group solidarity and not everybody likes the same kind of music, it's probably not going to work terribly well. Everyone's going to have to like the same kind of music, or it's going to have to be very kind of generic music in order for the solidarity to be binding. Now, of course, the other theory is that this is just an invention. Music is just an invention, and then it just happens to tap into other areas of the brain that create all these lovely chemicals that create pleasure and bonding and loving and so forth. And so that's one of the ideas that several people have. In fact, one of the people that originally had that idea was William James, the famous psychologist that attended Swami Vivekananda's lectures and so forth. But they suggest that music taps into brain functions that are ancient and universal and spontaneously developing, and that it just happens to tap into 5 distinct mental functions, each of which had an adaptive role on its own, but didn't have anything to do with music. And so these these other non-musical brain functions are things like language, the auditory scene analysis, in other words, the ability to separate out a particular sound from an environment. So if you're in, say, a natural surrounding and there's a gurgling brook passing by, there's also a snake that's rattling over here and a bird chirping over there. Our brain has to separate those sounds and know that the gurgling brook is fine, but the rattling snake is not fine, and that kind of thing. And then our ability to process emotional vocalizations. As when somebody talks, we know whether they're asking a question or whether they're making a statement, whether they're angry or whether they're whether they're happy or whether they're just factual. So we read those kinds of emotions. And motor control, where we're able to synchronize our movements to a beat and so forth. And habitat selection, where you listen to your environment and you know, well, it's not safe to sleep here tonight, I'll move somewhere else, that kind of thing. So these abilities to hear things in our environment had survival benefit, and eventually these could be used for music. I don't think this stands up very well because a lot of, certainly language did not develop very recently. Language is a relatively recent invention, and music seems to be much older than that. So I think that it's probably not the case. I think music started much earlier, and that I think it did arise because of all the things that we mentioned, that we probably as a species wanted to communicate. And before we had language, we probably communicated with various sounds and cries, and perhaps that developed into more musical cries. It certainly is the case with things like whales and dolphins that have, even mice have a little song that they sing. There are all sorts of animals that have little songs. And when we've had some ability to analyze the whales and dolphins, and we can tell that some of them are calling to mates, and some of them are warning, and some of them are telling about schools of fish that might be good to eat, and so forth. So we know that that's true, and of course, whales are another marine mammal, and that's another interesting little tidbit, is that there's a rather small minority of people that think that we have descended from a species of monkey that started to be aquatic and then decided we didn't need to be aquatic. And there is some evidence for that. First of all, we've lost almost all our hair, except for the one that's in the top of the head, which would stick out of the water. Compared to great apes and monkeys, our rear ends are designed more to sit on beach sand than they are to sit on trees or rocks. So our noses are definitely designed for diving. A great ape that has a flat nose would have difficulty keeping the water out of their nose if they dove into the water. So there's quite a few anatomical features that we have that look like we might have spent quite a bit of time in the water, but just never became fully aquatic. And when you're in the water, then it becomes more difficult to use sign language. You can't, if you're swimming, you can't then wave your hands as well at the same time. And so you're going to use vocal cues in order to communicate with others. And then, of course, we find this with whales and dolphins, which are other examples of aquatic mammals. So these are some very interesting things which show how music might have developed. And it seems like that there's something hypersensual about music. And this is another interesting theory. There's this interesting experiment with seagulls. The mother seagull has a little red dot on her beak, and if the baby seagull wants food, it pecks on the beak. It pecks on the little red dot. And if you take a model of a seagull and you make a really big red dot, it pecks really hard. It just gets really excited about this big red dot. So it's like it accentuates a stimulus that creates an automatic response. And people think that music is like that. So, for example, we speak with modulating tones up and down and so forth, and loud and soft. And music takes that and codifies it into a much more definite pattern. Instruments can get a lot higher than the human voice and a lot lower than the human voice. They can do things a lot faster, and they would do it slower than anyone would talk as well. So it exaggerates things that we already do with our voices, and so that's why it may have a heightened ability to create these emotional reactions with us. Whereas if somebody speaks excitedly or speaks angrily or speaks softly and tenderly, if you exaggerate those qualities in the music, then people will feel those emotions even more strongly than they did before. So there seem to be reasons why music has this extra ability really to transcend words. It really has the ability to, let's see, I have a quote from Darwin here somewhere. As neither the enjoyment nor the capacity of producing musical notes are the faculties of the least direct use to man in reference to his ordinary habits of life, they must be ranked among the most mysterious with which he is endowed. The original survival value of music is a mystery. But as we've seen, I think if we look at other animals, we can see that music probably did have some survival benefits. Our ability to sing or create some sort of tunes would have had some survival benefit. And then we created instruments probably a lot longer ago than 40,000 years ago to enhance our musical ability. And these all seem to be able to amplify those emotional components of sound. And they tap into a wide variety of brain areas, and many of these brain areas do promote these various neurochemicals, the oxytocins and the endorphins and the dopamine, and those feel good. Those are all feel-good hormones. And so music can create that kind of feel-good quality. Also, since when we sing together or play together or listen to the same music together, it entrains all of our rhythms together, and there becomes less of a feeling of an individual and a greater feeling of oneness. Anybody that's been in a choir or a marching band or an orchestra knows that you have to concentrate on what you're doing, but you also have to concentrate on what everybody else is doing. Marching band is a great example because you have to guide with the line that you're in this way. You have to guide with the line you're in that way. You have to watch the conductor or the drum master and concentrate on your music. So you have to feel that oneness. You have to be hearing everybody, seeing everybody at the same time. And so that has to become your whole universe. And so you get lost in that oneness. And so I think that's what the whirling dervishes do too. They become lost in that group energy of chanting and whirling. And then people that do gospel singing and they're swaying back and forth, and they're or kirtan, same thing, a great togetherness, and you begin to lose a sense of self and become one with that totality of devotees that are doing the same kind of ritual. So this reduction of self, of course, is one of the goals of our spiritual practices. We're trying to reduce the sense of individuality and increase the sense of connectedness and oneness with others. So I think that's one of the reasons that music is such a force in spiritual practices. All right, so this may be more than a one-part lecture. I may continue with some other aspects later on, we'll see. And of course, it ties into Kashmir Shaivism and the doctrine of vibration and all sorts of interesting things. So that concludes what we're going to do today. And I'll close with a chant, and then we can offer a flower. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om peace, peace, peace.
Thank you, Swami. Thank you so much for coming back again after the summer. In the heat.
One
Anything else?
There are lots of flowers and not many of us, so take 3 or 4 and
And we hope to see everybody next week on Sunday.